Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Juliet. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this lovely jumpsuit. Here I have my fabric folded into two using the child's chest measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches of allowance. I'm also taking out 2 inches on the upper part since it's an off shoulder, and I'm marking the half length plus 1 inch of allowance. Connecting that with a straight line, and I'm going to cut that out. This is the front piece. For the back, I also divided the chest by 4. I added 2 for allowance and 1.5 for zip. I'm removing 2 inches on the upper part for the off shoulder, marking the half length plus 1 inch extra for allowance. I'm also marking 1.5 here for the zipper allowance. I'll be connecting that with a straight ruler. I brought back the front piece and placed it on that line I drew. So next I'll be marking the neckline, which is the shoulder divided by 2 minus 1 inch. Shoulder divided by 2 minus 1 inch. I'm going to be marking that. Then I'm marking the armhole, which is 2.5 inches from that point. 2.5 inches for the armhole. Next off, I'm marking quarter of the chest measurement. From there, I'll connect it back to that neckline point, like so. I'll be cutting that out as you can see. I'll also be opening the zipper side into 2. So that is it for the upper part of the jumpsuit. I'm going to cut the lining exactly like so for all the pieces. For the trouser part, I have my fabric here folded into 2 using the thigh measurement divided by 2. So I'm going to mark 2 inches there. I'm going to add 2 inches extra to the jumpsuit. So that is what I'm taking out. My measurements will start from that 2-inch point. So on that 2-inch mark, I'm going to place my half length, the baby's half length, and then from there I mark the length of the jumpsuit plus extra 2 inches for folding. So from that 2-inch point, I place my half length and then mark the length of the jumpsuit plus 2 inches for folding. I'm connecting that with my ruler like so. After that, I'm going to, from that 2-inch point now, I'm going to mark the crotch measurement, which is the hip divided by 4. And here I have 6 inches, so I'm marking 6 inches here. From there, I'll mark the hip measurement divided by 4 again, plus 1 inch. So I marked the hip measurement divided by 4 without the 1 inch, which was a mistake, and then I later corrected it and wiped off the main one, the former one. So here I'm marking the hip measurement divided by 4 plus 1 extra inch. That is the correct thing to do. Another thing, instead of adding 2 inches to the trouser length, you can just add 2 inches to your crotch and mark your normal jumpsuit length instead of adding extra 2 inches to it, which will make it 2 inches longer. Just increase your crotch. Add 2 inches to your crotch and then start your measurement from the beginning to the length of your jumpsuit. Here I'm marking the waist divided by 4. That's the half length round divided by 4 plus 1 inch, and I connected it to that point like so. Placing my tape, my half length on that line again, and then I'm marking the shoulder to knee. That's the shoulder to knee. So I'm going to be marking the knee round now. The knee round will be divided into 2. So the knee round is 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that is what I'm marking here, 5 inches. And the ankle also the same thing, I'm marking 5 inches. Then I have the thigh divided by 2 plus 1 on that crotch area. So that's it for the front part. I'll be cutting it out now, but first I'm going to check again to be sure that my measurements are accurate. Yeah. Fold the seam allowance in like so before you cut. It will help when you're sewing. Opening the other side of the leg like so, and I'm also going to cut that point as well. Yeah, I have trust issues. I had to check again. So that's it for the front. Now I'm folding my fabric again to cut the back part of the jumpsuit, of the trouser part. So I'm going to place this front piece on it now. Place it like so. Then on the crotch point, I'm going to add 2 inches. So my fabric was not enough, I had to fold again. That's it. So I'm extending the crotch line there, and then I'll mark 2 inches over there. On the knee line, I marked 1.5, and then I marked 1 inch on the ankle line. I will connect those lines together like so. Then on the upper part there, I'm going to come up by 1 inch like so, and then connect it in a slant back to the waistline like that. And I'm cutting. So every other thing will be the same except for the rise up here, and then the extra inches are added on this side. You know, we didn't add any seam allowances on the front, so this is going to make up for that. On this other side is going to be the same. Just cut it open. That's it for the trouser. We'll be cutting lining for all the pieces. So here I've cut the lining for all of the pieces, the upper part and the trouser part as well. All the same. But on the trouser part, I'm going to be reducing the lining by 2 inches. That way your lining will not be peeping through after you finish turning it with the Ankara piece. So I'm marking 2 inches here, and I just cut that out. So now I'll be pinning the crotch areas together. So the 2 back pieces placed good face on top of good face, and I'm pinning the crotch area. I'll go and sew it like that. I'll do the same thing for the front piece. Good face on top of good face. I'll go and sew that. I'll do the same for the lining pieces, front and back. So I've sewn that and I've ironed it in place. Next off, I'm going to place the back piece on top of the front piece and pin the sides like so. I'll go and sew them down as well using 1/2 inch. The same thing for the lining. So I've sewn and ironed this part as well. So now I'm going to be pinning the inseam. Meanwhile, I didn't sew all the way down on the crotch area. I left about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to be pinning it like so, all the way. I brought them together at the same level, and I'm pinning it like so, as you can see. So I'll be placing my measurements, my knee round measurement and my ankle round measurement of the baby. Placing the ankle round here, divide by 2, the knee round divide by 2 on this point, and I'm just going to connect it to the ankle line like that, to the crotch line like that, leaving about ½ inch at that point. I will go and sew it. Do the same thing for this leg and the lining piece. So after sewing and ironing it like so, I'm going to go and close that small space I left there. I pin them together like so. I do the same for the lining. So next I'm going to put my lining inside my trouser piece. So the bad side of the lining is going to be facing the bad side of the trouser piece like so. So I'm just going to put them inside like this, and then I'll pin the waistline in place. Arrange them properly first of all, making sure the seams are where they should be, the seam of the lining and the seam of the trouser piece itself. Arrange all of them. I'm going to be pinning the waistline. So I'm pinning the waistline in place like so, making sure to match all the side seams and the crotch seams of the lining and the Ankara piece. I'm turning it inside out. I've turned it out and this is what it's looking like. So I'm going to put my hand inside the lining, only the lining piece. I'm putting my hand inside only the lining piece, not the Ankara piece, like so. So I'm going to hold the lining piece and the Ankara piece such that the good face is on top of the good face. I'll bring it out like this and pin it round first of all. I don't know, I'm sure you understand. I'm going to pin it round like so first of all, the right side of the lining and the right side of the main fabric. I'm going to pin it like so. I'm going to do the same thing. First of all, I'll bring it out like this to be sure that everything is aligning the way it should. As you can see, it's okay. So I'm going to do the same thing on this leg again. Put my hand inside the lining, then hold the lining piece and the main fabric in a way that their good faces are facing each other. Then I'll bring it out and then pin it. I'm sure you understand it better when you are practicing it. I'm going to pin it round like that. I'll put it back in to be sure that everything is looking the way it should. I want to confirm it first before I go and sew, so I don't make any mistake. So as you can see, it's giving what it should give. So I'll bring it out, back out, and go and sew it round like that. So after sewing, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to iron it flat now, like so. This is what it's looking like. We'll move on to the upper part now. So on the upper part now, I'm measuring the neckline the front neckline and the back neckline. I'm going to write that down somewhere. We'll be using it shortly. But first, I will be sewing down the zip line on the main fabric and the lining piece. So after sewing the zip line, I ironed it apart like so. So on the front piece now, I'm going to be marking the chest divided by 4 and then the waist divided by 4 on the down part like so. Connecting the line, I turn it this way, mark the chest divided by 4 and then the waist divided by 4, and I'm connecting like so. I open it up into 2 and check the chest divided by 2 first of all and the waist divided by 2 to be sure I have the accurate measurement. So I'll place the front piece on top of the back, making sure the center front and the center back are sitting on top of each other. I'll pin it together, take it to the machine and sew those lines. I'll be doing the same thing on the lining. After sewing, I'll be trimming down the seam allowances. Turning it inside out, I'm going to iron those seams flat. I'll do the same thing for the lining. So now I'll be cutting the sleeve piece. I have 2 inches here and I'm cutting out 4 inches. Basically what you do is measure around the shoulder and then measure your neckline front and back and subtract it from your round the shoulder. Whatever you have left, share it for the 2 sleeves. So I'm pinning it here. This is the front piece. I'm pinning the sleeve up. The side that is open is going to be up like that. So I'm going to pin it. You can see I've already opened the zip allowance I sewed earlier. So it will go like that when you're done, but first of all, we'll turn this piece alone with the lining first. So I'll sew from the front armhole like that to that point, and then we'll come back and do it again. For now, let's just sew only this part first. It's easier like this. Sew there, stop at that point, sew there, stop there too. Then we'll come back and continue. I love to pin. I pin everything before I sew. After sewing there, this is what it's looking like now. So I'm going to now turn it, place it on the back part of the cloth and then turn the lining over to sew the remaining half of the armhole. So after sewing the 2, this is what you will have. So I'm going to carry the trouser now, mark 5 inches down on the back side and loosen it. So after loosening it, I'm going to now be pinning the top part on the trouser part. Good face of the trouser to the good face of the top part. So I'm going to pin, making sure the side seams are matching. So the side seam of the trouser and the side seam of the top, they should match if you got your measurements accurately. Then I will pin the right side of the lining top and the right side of the lining trouser separately. So I'm sewing lining to lining, main fabric to main fabric, all sewn, and this is what we have. Now I'll be fixing an invisible zipper at that back. Now I fixed the invisible zipper only on the main fabric. I didn't fix the zip on the lining piece. So now I'm turning it out, and next I will be sewing the seam allowance of the main fabric, that's the zipper allowance of the main piece, to the zipper allowance of the lining piece. So you're sewing allowance to allowance. You will find a way to go in that corner. So I've sewn that, and this is what we have. So next I will measure round the neckline, and whatever I have, which should be my round the shoulder exactly, I'll divide that by 6.28 and cut my flare. So to cut the flappies, I have my fabric here folded into 2 and into 4. So I'm going to be measuring my flare, the radius of my flare plus the length of the flare. So the radius is what you get when you divide by 6.28. So add that to the length of your flare plus 1 inch for folding, and that is what I marked there. Then I'm marking the radius itself up here. Mark it round like so and cut. Take it to my machine and fold the down part. So I folded my flare nicely. I'm going to be pinning it to the wrong side of the fabric, so the right side of the flare on the wrong side of the upper part, like so. I'll pin it round and then use a bias strip to finish the edges. So here is it, all nice and clean. So this is how to make a fitted jumpsuit for a baby girl, fully lined, nice and clean. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer all of them. Give this video a thumbs up if you learned anything from it. Oh, and please subscribe. Subscribe, please. Very important. And also click on the notification bell so you'll be notified each time I post a new video. Thank you for watching and bye.